There is a question I keep seeing asked online whenever women express anger collectively. Why are women so angry right now? And the answer that's given is usually something about feminism or politics or social media. But those are symptoms, not causes. The real answer is much older and much more psychological than any trend cycle. And today we're going to talk about it through the women we have watched on screen, through the characters we called crazy, unhinged, too much. Because they were never crazy. They were just the first ones to stop pretending. Okay, so first, what is female rage actually? Because I think the word rage makes people picture something explosive and out of control. And that is exactly the misunderstanding we need to fix first. Female rage is not just feeling angry. It is the unapologetic expression of anger stemming from the systemic oppression of women. And instead of being a loud, sharp anger, it is more accurately described as a buildup of resentment and frustration that has been simmering for a very long time underneath a very composed surface. And nobody shows us this better than Cassie Howard. Cassie's rage in Euphoria is never loud. It is never directed outward in any clean or powerful way. It is internalized. It becomes obsession. It becomes performing for Nate in the bathroom mirror at 5 a.m. It becomes making herself smaller and prettier and more agreeable until she has no idea who she is anymore. Her rage does not explode. It implodes. And she turns it on herself over and over and over again instead of on the situation that actually deserves it. And the reason millions of women said, "I see myself in Cassie," is because they do. Because most of us learn to do exactly what she did, turn it inward, make it pretty, make it palatable, make it about ourselves instead of about the world that created it. Okay, here's the part that makes me genuinely upset. Women have not just been discouraged from expressing anger, they have been systemically punished for it for centuries, and that punishment became so internalized that women started policing their own anger before anyone else had to. Normative femininity, the blueprint for what a good woman looks like, was built around the complete giving up of anger, not the management of it, not the appropriate expression of it. The good woman was pleasant, agreeable, soft. She did not make people uncomfortable with her feelings, and if she did, she was hysterical. She was difficult. She was too much. And Nina Sayers from Black Swan is what that looks like taken to its absolute extreme. Nina does not get angry. Nina gets perfect. She channels every ounce of her frustration, her pain, her desire into becoming flawless. Because flawless is the only thing the world around her has ever rewarded. Her rage has nowhere to go, so it turns into obsession with perfectionism. It turns into self-destruction. It turns into the black swan, the dark alter ego that contains everything she was never allowed to be in her real life. And by the end of the film, that suppressed darkness has consumed everything. And here is the psychological truth underneath that story. When you suppress an emotion consistently over time, it does not disappear. It goes underground. It finds another shape. Women were not allowed to be angry, so they became depressed, they became anxious, they became perfectionists and people pleasers and chronic overachievers instead. The anger was always there. It was just wearing a different costume. Okay, let me get specific because this is the most important psychological section of this entire video. Anger is not a negative emotion. Anger is an informative emotion. It is your nervous system telling you that a boundary has been crossed, that something unjust has happened, that something needs to change. And when you suppress that signal consistently, when you are told from childhood that your anger is not acceptable, a few devastating things happen. First, you lose access to your own boundaries because anger is what tells you when a boundary has been crossed. No anger signal means no clear boundary signal. Means you keep tolerating things you should not be tolerating because you cannot feel the thing that would tell you to stop. Second, the anger converts into anxiety, into depression, into chronic physical symptoms like tension, headaches, digestive issues, autoimmune conditions. Women have significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety than men. And one of the most significant contributing factors researchers keep pointing to is the chronic suppression of anger. Your body keeps the score. It always does. And this is exactly what Pearl shows us. Pearl is isolated on a farm. She is trapped by expectation and duty and the life that was chosen for her rather than by her. And she does not scream about it. Not at first. She smiles, she performs, she tends to her chores and her mother and her dreams that get smaller every day. But underneath that performance, something is building. Something that has had nowhere to go for so long that when it finally finds an outlet, it becomes something Monstrous. Not because Pearl is a monster, but because that is what happens to rage that has been contained for too long with no acknowledgement, no outlet, no permission to simply exist. Okay, and this is where Jennifer's body comes in, and I need you to understand why this film is so much more than a horror movie. Jennifer is a teenage girl who is quiet, literally consumed, and turned into a monster by men who used her body for their own purposes. And after that, she starts consuming men. And the whole film was marketed as a sexy horror movie for men, but it was written by a woman and directed by a woman, and it is actually about something completely different. It is about what happens when female rage becomes monstrous because society gave it absolutely nowhere else to go. The metaphor is not subtle. Jennifer does not choose to become a monster. She is made into one by men who took something from her that was not theirs to take, and then her rage, which was always legitimate, always justified, becomes the thing the world fears most, an angry woman with power. And here is the cultural commentary underneath that. For decades, the angry woman in media was always the villain, always the monster, always the cautionary tale, because a woman who knows she is angry and knows why and refuses to suppress it anymore has always been the most threatening thing imaginable to a system built on her compliance. Jennifer's body understood that in 2009, and we are only now catching to what it was actually saying. So why now? Why is female rage having this cultural moment specifically in 2026? Because we have reached a breaking point. Years of political regression on women's rights, increasing frustration with systemic inequality, and the exhaustion of performing politeness in a world that does not reciprocate have all built to this moment. And women are finally seeing their inner experience reflected back at them in media and culture in a way that says, you were never crazy, you were never too much, you were just paying attention. Cassie Howard showed us what suppressed rage looks like when it turns inward. Nina Sayers showed us what it looks like when it becomes perfectionism. Pearl showed us what it looks like when it has been contained for too long with no outlet. Jennifer showed us what the world does to women who finally stop hiding it. And millions of women looked at all four of them and said, I know her, I am her, I have been her. The female rage era is not a trend. Trends come and go. This is something that has been building for a very long time in a very large number of people, and is finally finding a surface to rise to. Your anger is not too much. It never was. It was just inconvenient for a world that needed you quiet and agreeable and small. And underneath the rage is something much older and much more important. It is the part of you that always knew you deserved more, and she has been waiting a very long time to be heard.